Wow, that hurt. It made me stagger back, dropping the drinks. She hit me so hard. I think she may have dislocated my jaw. My left hand went to the side of my face, trying to rub the hurt away. I really do think she may have dislocated my jaw. It hurts and clicks when I open and shut my mouth. I looked around the room, embarrassed. Everyone is looking at me. I look back to my wife. There is fire in her eyes. She is pissed. I don't understand where this anger is coming from. 10 minutes before, we were laughing and mingling at my company's 30th anniversary part. When I say my company, I don't mean I own it. Rather, it's where I work, have for the last 25 years, since I got out of college. I'm the director of operations, the owner's right-hand man. We've worked hard to get this company where it is today. It's been 10 years since we had a company party. Our last one was on our 20th anniversary. 10 years ago, I didn't know if I would be staying for another month, let alone another decade. It had nothing to do with the company. It was personal life that had me wondering what I was going to be doing with the rest of my life. I didn't know what would happen or where I'd be. Back then, I was contemplating filing for divorce. I had just received an anonymous email from someone at my wife's corporate offices. The email was addressed to me, but also to an Elizabeth Jones. I was curious. Why was I receiving an email from Bridget's company? I opened the email and my life changed instantly. There was a picture of my wife in a passionate kiss with some man. They were standing in front of a hotel room door. I can remember every detail of that photo. The blue business dress my wife wore as she embraced the man with her hand on the back of his head. This wasn't a picture taken out of context. They were in a lover's embrace, his hand on her hips, his other arm around her back. The door framed the picture of my wife's betrayal, the room number 321 clear as day. It wasn't my wife's room, I checked. It was reserved in Gary Jones' name. The kicker was that when I tried to find out what room my wife had reserved, there was none. I would find out more of the details later. I had to leave work to wrap my head around this. I went to Jim, the owner, and asked if I could leave and take the next day, Friday, off. He could tell something was wrong, but he didn't ask, at least not then. When I got home, I brought the kids to Bridget's parents. We would need time to talk, and I didn't want the kids to hear the words that I knew I would be saying. When Bridget came home that night, it was about 6:30. Her flight had got in around 5:15, and after she grabbed her car from the long-term parking lot, she made the 45-minute drive home. Bridget works as an area rep for a company out of Chicago. She works out of our home, which gives her the flexibility for the kids, but once a quarter she has a 3-day meeting at the corporate headquarters. This had been one of those meetings. As Bridget walked in the door from our garage, she was pulling her carry-on luggage with one hand and holding her purse in the other. I was standing in our kitchen, just looking at her. She said, "Oh, Kurt, can you grab my suitcase out of my trunk? You might need it, so leave it in there," I said to her. She looked up at me, confused. She could tell I was mad. "What's wrong, honey?" she said, concerned. "You're a lying, cheating witch," I yelled as I held up the picture I had printed off. There were others, but this was the most damning one. She gasped, "Where did you get that?" "Someone from your company cares more about our marriage than you do. They sent it, wanting to make sure I knew what was going on." Her face went emotionless. We stood there in silence for at least a minute. "That's not true, Kurt," she finally said. "What? Do you think this is a fake picture? Do you think I can't see with my own eyes the passion in that kiss? What isn't true?" "It isn't true that someone from my company cares more about our marriage than I do," she stated. "Bullshit," I yelled. "Take your cheating bum back out to your car, go to a hotel, go to your parents, go to hell for all I care. Kurt, we need to talk about this. You know I love you and the kids more than anything in life. You have to know that. Screw you. It sure doesn't look like it from the picture. If you did, you would never have been with him. You need to leave. Now." "Kurt, that doesn't take anything away from my love for you and the kids. If you search your heart, you'll know I love you. You have a funny way of showing it, shacking up with some other man when you're out of town. You have to leave. I can't stand the sight of you right now. And oh, I'm not leaving. We need to talk about this. You need to let me explain," she said. "I don't want to listen to your bullshit. If you're not leaving, then I will," I said as I stormed out the front door. I went out to the garage to hop in my truck. Bridget had already come into the garage from the kitchen door. She came around to the driver's side as I was getting in. "Kurt," she said, "stop." "Screw you," I yelled and cranked the ignition, revving the engine to drown out her voice. I slammed it into reverse, and she jumped out of the way as I squealed out of the garage. I backed out into the street, put the truck in drive, and peeled away. My heart was pounding as I took off down the street. That witch thinks she's going to try to talk her way out of this. No way. Just then my phone rang. Of course it was her. I didn't want to talk to her. I was tempted to throw the phone out the window, but I would need it to make the necessary calls and for internet access. So, I turned it off, not wanting to be bothered by her, or anyone else for that matter. I drove up to Spring Hill. My wife may try to call around to all the hotels in Columbia, Tennessee where we lived, but she wouldn't think to call hotels in Spring Hill. As I was driving, I started thinking, who is this Gary Jones? How long had this been going on? Obviously, Gary was married too. The email sent to both Elizabeth Jones, and I stated that, these are pictures of what your spouses are doing. Were they planning on leaving us? Maybe they were just waiting for the right time to spring it on us. Well, this may have moved up their plans a bit. So many thoughts were going through my brain. I had to do some research, find out as much as I could. I needed information in order to formulate a plan of action. I found a hotel and checked in. I didn't have any luggage. I didn't have a change of clothes, or even a toothbrush. I headed to Walmart and bought some necessities as well as a pair of jeans and a polo shirt to change into tomorrow. I didn't buy too much, just what I could pay for in cash. I didn't know when I would be back home, but I didn't want to use a debit card in case Bridget was looking for me. I grabbed a pizza on the way back to the hotel and sat on the bed eating, not even really tasting it. Bridget, my wife, for now, had been cheating on me. For a while, since they were sharing a room. How long? I wondered. I started reviewing our marriage. I know husbands are the last to know, and oftentimes can be clueless to the signs, but I really couldn't think of anything that would make me question her fidelity. I researched signs of cheating on my phone. There were none of the ones they listed. There were no accusations or even hints that she thought I was unfaithful. There were no late-night phone calls or texts that she had to take into another room or outside. She hadn't changed her appearance or her routines. We talked about our days and even made time for each other. There had been no reduction in our sex life. In fact, we were still, even 15 years into our marriage, having sex 5 times a week on average. We never slowed down like so many other couples do, even when the kids came along. She hadn't suggested any new or unusual sex acts either, but then again, there wasn't much we didn't do. I truly didn't see any indication that she was cheating on me. In fact, if you had asked me 2 days ago, I would have told you that I was the luckiest man on earth. I had a wife that I loved, that loved me, and 3 kids, 7, 10, and 12. That made both our lives that much richer. That made me think of the kids, Jared the oldest, followed by Jeremy, and finally Jennifer. Yeah, I know, all J names. We probably shouldn't have done that to our kids, but we did. What probably makes it worse is that my last name is Jensen. Jared quickly became JJ because of it. So we insisted on calling the other 2 by their full names, Jeremy and Jennifer. The kids, how would they take this? I didn't know what the future held, but I would be their father, no matter what. If we decided to get a divorce, I would insist that they not be moved. I wanted to continue to play a major role in my children's future. Divorce. Did I want to get a divorce? No, of course not. I wanted a loving marriage with a loving wife and family. I can't think that any man that has a family wants a divorce. What could I do, though? I couldn't live with a wife that chooses to sleep with another guy. That got me to thinking, who was this Gary Jones? I needed to do some research. I Googled him. There were a lot of Gary Jones, but only one that worked at my wife's company. He was an area rep for the company also. His area was the Denver area. So, every 3 months they would be at the quarterly meetings together. I knew he was married, so I started searching Facebook to see what I could learn about him. It took some digging, but I finally found the Gary Jones in Denver with a wife, Elizabeth. They had 2 kids, a boy 6 and a girl 8. I wondered how she was taking the news. Would she divorce him, make him a part-time dad too? I found her Facebook page and made a friend request. I figured she'd recognize the name from the email and would, hopefully, accept the request. I wanted to talk to her, or rather have a Facebook conversation. I needed to know more. I grabbed my 4th beer and sat back against the headboard of the hotel bed. How had my life gone to shit? I asked myself, was I the reason she cheated? I had tried to be an involved parent and a loving husband. I brought her flowers on occasion, even for no other reason than I loved her. I tried always to put her needs first in bed, ensuring that she got off before I did. What had I done wrong? I knew that I wouldn't be able to figure out the answers to those questions without speaking to Bridget, but the wound was too fresh to talk to her tonight. Maybe I would be able to talk to her tomorrow, maybe not until next week. As I was thinking that, I thought again about my kids. I had brought them to their grandparents, Bridget's parents, so that we could have it out. We didn't talk long before I couldn't take it anymore. What had she said? It's not true that someone from the corporate offices thinks more of our marriage than I do. How could she say that? If she thought more of our marriage, she wouldn't be cheating on me. Then she said, "You know I love you and the kids more than anything in life. You have to know that." How could I know that if she is sleeping with another man? Then she had the audacity to say, "That doesn't take anything away from my love for you and the kids. If you search your heart, you'll know. I love you." That's just it. When I did search my heart, I did know that she loved me. She loved all of us. How could she do that? Doesn't she know that by doing what she had done, it does take something away from her love? It takes the trust one had for her away. How could I ever really trust her again? The kids were at her parents' house. What would she tell them? What would she tell her parents? Would she lie about why I had brought the kids over? Would she lie to the kids when they came back home? No, I knew she wouldn't lie. Bridget was as honest as the day is long. She would rather not say anything, or she would tell them that she would tell them later. No, she wouldn't lie. That is another thing that bothered me. How could someone that was so adamant about not lying be so dishonest in our relationship? If I was doing something that made her want to turn to another man, shouldn't she have told me? More questions to ask her when we had that confrontation. I'm not a big drinker, so the fourth beer was making me sleepy. I decided that I had better get undressed and try to get some sleep. I knew it was going to be a fitful sleep. The beer would help with that though. I probably got about 4 hours of sleep, much of that as an effect of the beer. I kept waking though, having dreams of my life as a divorced dad. When the light from the outside was strong enough to hamper my ability to sleep, I got up, showered, and put on my new clothes. I turned my phone on, and there were more messages from Bridget, both voicemails and texts. She was concerned and wondered where I was. I didn't want to deal with that yet. I decided to go to the Cracker Barrel for breakfast instead. I sat by myself, looking at the other patrons in the dining room. Families younger than ours were enjoying themselves as the babies made a mess of themselves and the floor around them. Some people like me, sitting alone, surfing on their phones, and an older couple sitting across from each other, talking to one another with a look of love and familiarity in their eyes. That couple made my eye tear up. I had been so stoic up to this point, but seeing them made me think of my dreams when Bridget and I married. My dream was to grow old together. I hastily finished my meal and left. I drove around the countryside. I thought more about my dreams, our dreams. When Bridget and I met in our senior year at the University of Tennessee, I knew it was love at first sight. She was so beautiful and put together, with her auburn hair and her jeans and white blouse top. I can remember every detail. We started dating and became exclusive soon after. We graduated, and a year later we were married. I was all smiles as I stood in front of her church. My family, my parents and my brother and his wife, had driven down from Franklin, Indiana to attend. I also had a couple friends from college standing up there with me, and my best man was my best friend from grade school. I can still remember our promises to each other, to love, honor, and cherish. That was another thing I couldn't understand about what Bridget had done. If there was one aspect of Bridget that I thought was a little strange, it is her thoughts on promises. She doesn't make them lightly. If she makes a promise, she will follow through with it, even if it is immensely against her interests. She feels that strongly. A promise is absolute. How could she promise herself to me, to love, honor, and cherish, and then have an affair? It made me question everything I knew about her. I continued to drive around. Tennessee is such a gorgeous state. From the mountains in the east to the Mississippi River in the west, there is so much of nature all around you. It is a sharp contrast to the mostly flat farmlands of Indiana. I definitely considered this my home state now. Even though I was enjoying the scenery, my mind kept coming back to the problem at hand. When I looked at my phone, as I stopped for gas, I saw more texts and more voicemail messages. I knew by the tone of the messages that she was worried that I had done something to myself. I needed to let her know that I was alive, but also, I didn't want to give her any indication that I had read or listened to her messages. Better for her to think that I had deleted them. I decided that I would call JJ. We had gotten him a phone for his 12th birthday. I dialed the number and he answered on the third ring. "Hey Dad, what's going on?" "Why do you ask?" I said, "Mom called here twice last night and then again this morning." He told me, "So, you're still at your grandparents'?" "Yeah, Mom said we could stay overnight last night and kept us out of school today. I think she's coming to pick us up after lunch." "So, what's going on?" "Your mom and I had a disagreement and I spent the night in a hotel. It's nothing you guys have to worry about though. Don't tell your brother or sister, that will just worry them." "No problem, Dad. What do you want me to tell Mom when she comes to pick us up?" "Tell her I'll text her later." "Okay, Dad?" "Yes, son." I said, "I hope you work everything out." "I'm sure we will, son." I told him, but in actuality I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about anything. About an hour later my phone rang. I figured she would call me as soon as she got to her parents, and Jared let her know what I had said. In fact, I had been counting on it. I let it go to voicemail and listened to it. She sounded relieved, but still worried, and also a little perturbed. Well, she was going to be downright pissed when she got home. I pulled into my driveway, pulled into the garage, and went into the house. I started immediately to pack all my clothes and other belongings I felt I needed. When I say pack, I really mean throw my stuff into some garbage bags to get it out to my truck as quickly as possible. I grabbed my laptop and a picture of my 3 kids that we had taken last year. I set my wedding ring on the nightstand on her side of the bed. I wrote a note to my children telling them I loved them. I set it on the kitchen table. It made me cry to have to write all my feelings for my kids in a letter. I would make it up to them sometime. After I wiped my eyes, I walked out to my truck, pulled out of the garage, and hit the button for the garage door. I watched it go down. It felt like I was closing a door on my life. About a half an hour later, I got a call. Yes, it was Bridget. I decided to answer it. Yeah? I said, in an unemotional voice. Kurt, what is this? Were her first words to me, not, I'm sorry, or please forgive me. What is what? I asked, again unemotionally. A note to the kids? You've taken all your clothes? And I find your wedding ring on my nightstand? Sounds like you described it perfectly. Why do you need me to tell you what it is? I said sarcastically. I wasn't often sarcastic with my wife, but when I was, she knew I was mad. Kurt, we need to talk about this. You don't have to go off half-cocked. Oh, so that's what it is. He's got twice the size tool as me. That's what you see in him. Kurt, we need to talk. We are talking, Bridget, I said, dripping with sarcasm. No, we need to talk face to face. You need to come back home. Where are you anyway? Somewhere where I can think about my life and the direction I want to take it in. Somewhere I don't have to look at my cheating wife. She was getting angry now. Kurt, you come home right this instant. Bridget, I'm not one of the kids. You can't talk to me like that. Goodbye. I said loudly and hung up the phone. I shut my phone off. Let it go to voicemail. Let her yell at that. I know I was being difficult, but she didn't say she was sorry, not even once. That should have been the first words out of her mouth. She wasn't apologetic at all. In fact, she was just the opposite. She was on the warpath. I drove to a motel that rented by the week and got a room. I would decide later what my living arrangements were going to be. As I lay there on the bed, I started thinking again. I wondered what she had told her parents. Her parents had always treated me well. They seemed to really like me. I would need to call them and give them my side of the story. I picked up my phone and turned it back on. There was no reason to listen to the voicemails or look at my texts. I knew what would be there, more of the same. I wondered if she would ever say she was sorry, or would it be a half-hearted afterthought? I dialed her parents' number, and her mom answered. Helen, this is Kurt. Oh, Kurt, thank you for calling. We were so worried about you. She said. I felt more love from her right now than I did from her daughter. Thanks, I'm okay. So what did she tell you? I asked. She said you had a huge misunderstanding and stormed out before she could explain. She was sure that once you two talked, everything could be worked out. Misunderstanding? That's an understatement. I thought. So, she didn't give you any details? I asked. No, she just said you were blowing everything out of proportion. Well then, let me tell you some details and I'll let you decide if I'm blowing everything out of proportion. Okay, Kurt. If it will help you to get it off your chest, I'm listening. It seems that Bridget, my wife and your daughter, has been having an affair. Oh, Kurt, I can't believe that. Well, I was emailed pictures of her. One of her in a very passionate kiss standing outside of a hotel room door. There has to be a logical explanation, Kurt. I can't believe she would do that. I couldn't believe it either, so I called the hotel and asked for her room, and they told me that she didn't have a room. I know that that is the hotel that her company uses for all of their out-of-town guests, because it is right down the street from the corporate offices. Well, maybe there was a mix-up, her mom said. That doesn't explain why she was arm in arm, kissing this Gary Jones. When I said his name, I heard her gasp. What do you know? I asked. Oh, Kurt, are you sure it was him? Well, the email I got was addressed to me and an Elizabeth Jones, and the room was registered to Gary Jones. The email said that they were having an affair. Oh, Kurt, I'm so sorry. Well, at least someone is. I said. So, who is Gary Jones? How does she know him? He lives in Denver. Kurt, Gary was Bridget's first love. They were high school sweethearts. We thought for sure that they would get married. Bridget went to U of T and Gary went to the University of Colorado. He had received a scholarship and wanted to get out of Tennessee. They stayed together for the whole first school year, calling each other all the time. But during the summer, they decided that the long-distance romance was too hard. Bridget took it hard, but I think that she grew to be a more independent woman because of it. So, she's still in love with him, and I was her second choice. I said, "That is not right, Kurt. I know she loves you. When she met you, and we would talk, you were all she would talk about. Even with the sometimes trying times in a marriage, she has always spoken very lovingly of you. I know she loves you and the kids. Please talk to her. Find out what's going on." I had to admit that talking to Bridget's mom not only gave me new insight, but also made me feel better, if only because I had a chance to talk about it with someone. "Thank you, Mom. I really appreciate talking with you. I don't know what will happen, but I hope that no matter what happens, we can continue to have a good relationship." "Okay, Kurt. I have faith that you two will work it out. Don't give up on your marriage. I believe you would regret it if you did." "Thanks, Mom. I'll give it a lot of thought." I hung up the phone. She really had me thinking, wondering if it was something I should fight for. Obviously, she still cared for this Gary Jones. The question in my mind was, where do I rate? He was her first love. Would they be looking to renew a serious relationship? Where would that put me and our kids? I needed to find out what her feelings were for this Gary Jones, and for our marriage. I texted Bridget, "I'll stop by the house tomorrow night around 6 o'clock, was all I wrote. She texted me right back, "Okay, I love you." If she loved me, then why did she do what she had done? I hoped tomorrow would clear up some of the questions I had. Saturday night, I rang the doorbell at 6 o'clock sharp. JJ opened the door and looked at me, puzzled. "Why did you ring the bell, Dad?" I didn't know what to say to him. I had done it to make a point to Bridget that I didn't feel a part of the family anymore. As I stood there, looking at my son, I knew that was a mistake. I would always be a part of the family, divorced or not. Then JJ said, "Dad, I don't know what happened, but no matter what, you are my dad." My child was too wise for his age. I think he probably had some idea, even at 12 years old. Just then Bridget came around the corner from the kitchen. "Kurt, honey, take off your coat. Dinner is almost ready." She had made dinner and was acting like nothing was wrong. Just another day, no big problems that we had to deal with. It comforted me, but kind of pissed me off too. During dinner, I paid attention to my kids. They seemed happy that I was home, but didn't seem upset about my being gone. I guess it had been only 2 days. It felt longer to me. Throughout dinner, JJ was watching me. He could see the tension in my face, and the fact that I wasn't paying any attention to his mom. After dinner, we played a few games as a family. I still didn't interact with Bridget much. At bedtime, I tucked the kids into their beds, even JJ. He said to me, "Dad, you always say that problems need to be talked through. Take your own advice." My son had just challenged me, put me on the hot seat, as it were. "I will, son. Are you going to be here in the morning?" "We'll see. I hope so." I said, I did hope we could find a way to get past this. I just didn't know how. I walked downstairs and into the living room. Bridget was sitting on the couch. I took the chair across from her. We just stared at each other for a minute. Then she spoke up. "So, are you going to stop acting like a child and actually talk to me?" So, the first words out of her mouth aren't, "I'm sorry," or "I love you." Rather, she has to insult me. That got my blood boiling. "So, how long have you and Gary been screwing?" I asked. Might as well get that out of the way first. "Kurt, it's not like that," she said. "So, you're going to deny that you've been screwing your ex-boyfriend?" She looked down at her hands and then back up at me. "It's not like that," she said again. "Bridget, you've always been an extremely honest person. I want you to look me in the eyes and tell me, yes or no, when I ask you again, have you been having sex with Gary Jones?" "Kurt, you need to let me explain." She was deflecting, trying to avoid the subject. I looked at her, and she just stared back at me. I saw no guilt, no shame or remorse on her face. That said it all. I stood up. She looked up at me. I turned and walked toward the front door. "So, you're going to run away again. Why can't you stay, and we can discuss this rationally? Because right now I just want to smack that look right off your face. If I don't leave now, I'm afraid I just might hit you, and I don't hit women. Not yet, at least." I grabbed my coat, opened the door, and walked out to my truck. She had just shown me that my feelings weren't important to her. Again, it kept coming back to me that she still hadn't said she was sorry. I got in my truck and pulled out of my driveway. I looked up at the house and noticed JJ looking out his window at me. I drove away, crying for my failed marriage and for my children. Monday, I called an attorney to make an appointment. She was available at 4, so I spoke with Jim, the owner, and scooted out a little early. The attorney met with me, and I explained the whole situation. She asked me if I felt we could work it out. I don't think so. She has yet to say that she is sorry, and the look on her face Saturday night showed no remorse. Okay, she said. I'll start the paperwork. I should be able to have it ready to serve on Friday. Where should I have her served? That could be a problem. She worked out of our house, but was out meeting clients throughout the central Tennessee area most days. How could I make sure she was home to be served? I explained the situation to Janice, and she suggested right after the kids got on the school bus. That would work. She never left the home until they were gone. Now, Mr. Jensen, you know that if you go through with the divorce, your wife will probably get primary custody of the kids and would be allowed to continue to live in the home. You will probably be responsible for the mortgage and child support, as well as health insurance for the children. With her job, though, you will not likely have to pay any spousal support. What a kick in the teeth. The cheater gets off scot-free, and I have to pay for it. Then she said to me, knowing all of that, do you still want to have her served? I looked at her, thought a minute, and said, I would rather live in a dump yard than remain married to her. May I make a suggestion? She asked. Sure, you're the expert. After the initial shock of being served, she may be willing to go to counseling. There you can both speak your minds with a moderator there to keep it civil. Okay, I said. When she gets served, she will probably call you immediately. Make sure you are available to take the call. If she seems at all conciliatory and asks how you can avoid divorce, then tell her that maybe counseling would help. If she agrees, let her pick the counselor. That way she will see that you are willing to follow her lead on this. Okay, I said again. I probably sounded like an idiot. Kurt, be open to what the counselor says. If I read you right, you would rather stay married than get a divorce. You just need to see some remorse and get your self-respect back. Having your wife acknowledge your pain and say she's sorry will go a long way to making that happen. I thanked her and walked out of her office with trepidation. I was afraid of what the week would bring. Friday, I cleared my schedule so that if Bridget called, I would be available, and if she wanted to talk on the phone for a while, I would also be available. At 8:15, I got the call from Bridget. Kurt, she sniffled. I could tell she had been crying. I love you. I don't want a divorce. We promised. Until death do us part. Don't throw everything away. Think of the kids. I will not stay married to you and have you sleeping with your ex-boyfriend. I said directly, but not forcefully. Kurt, I'm sorry I hurt you. Wow, she had actually said she was sorry, but it was for hurting me, not for doing what she had done. At least that is what I had heard her say. Please, Kurt, I love you. Please don't do this. She was full out crying now. Bridget, you have hurt me, probably more than you know. I just can't see any way past this. Oh, Kurt, please. Can't we talk about this? Try to work it out? She sobbed. Not if you're going to continue to belittle me. I said, yes, I had to take a jab at her. I'm sorry, Kurt. I was just frustrated that you wouldn't listen and try to understand. Perhaps we can go to a counselor. They may be able to help us both understand. I suggested. She perked up and said, would you? Yes, but you pick the counselor. You know my schedule. Work it out and let me know where and when. I'll make a call right now, Kurt. Thank you. I truly do love you. I love you too, honey. So, here we were, either on the brink of reconciliation or collapse. I truly didn't know which way it would go. What was I willing to accept? What was I willing to do? What about my kids, if they were my kids? I hated even thinking that way, but when someone betrays your trust, you start to question everything. I couldn't understand it. If you asked me, even now, if I thought Bridget loved me, I'd have to say yes. She was everything one could hope to have in a wife. She expressed her love for me in so many ways. If she didn't love me, then she was the best damn actress in the world, and I was the biggest oblivious idiot. That is one of the reasons her betrayal hurt me so badly. I couldn't believe it. Then I thought about the kids. What kind of effect would this have on them? I knew that kids of divorce have problems, but so do kids of parents that stay married. I would have to do my best, if it came to that, to show them love and let them know that none of this is because of them. A few hours later, I got a call from Bridget. She had found a counselor that she liked that could see us at 7:30 on Wednesday. She gave me the name and address. Okay, I'll be there. Kurt, now that we have this appointment, won't you come back home so we can do some preliminary talks? We need to talk about it. I need to explain. I think it is best that we wait until at least Wednesday before I come back home. But Kurt, the kids are asking where you're at. They need you, and I need you. Goodbye, Bridget. I said and hung up. The kids. She had to throw them in there. That made me feel guilty. I wondered if I didn't go home soon, would it have a lasting effect? I had to stand firm though. I knew that if I gave in to her now, then I would lose all my self-respect. The appointment is Wednesday. What did I expect? I knew the counselor wouldn't have a magic pill to solve all our problems. Ultimately, what did I want from the counseling? Number 1, I wanted to know why. Number 2, how long has this been going on? Number 3, does she still love him? Number 4, does she still love me? Number 5, did she ever really love me? Number 6, does she want to end up back with him? Number 7, the big one in my eyes, how do I ever trust her again? 7 things. I'm sure I would come up with more along the way, but these 7 had to be answered to my satisfaction, or there was no hope for our marriage. That night I lay there in the motel bed. My mind kept reviewing our life together. I couldn't understand it. There was nothing that I saw that could explain it. I didn't get much sleep that weekend. Monday morning, Jim came by my office and asked if he could take me out to lunch. Of course. I said, all right, I'll drop by about 11:45, and we'll go to the Southern Tray Steakhouse. Sounds good, I replied. My home problems were obviously affecting my work. Jim just didn't take me out to lunch for no reason. At the restaurant we sat down, and after we ordered, Jim said, "Spill it." I looked at him. Don't give me that look. We've been working together for 15 years. What's going on? I looked down at the table and mumbled, "She's cheating on me." What? I can't believe it. Are you sure? I have photographic evidence, not graphic, but it is obvious that there is more than just kissing going on. Holy shit. I'm sorry. I still can't believe it. You two seem so much in love every time I see you together. That's what's killing me. I never saw anything. No signs, no comments, nothing. If you would have told me 2 weeks ago that she was cheating on me, I would have laughed at you and called you crazy. I just don't understand it. What did she say? He asked. Not much, but I didn't give her much time to say anything. I'll tell you what she didn't say. She didn't say she was sorry for what she had done. Not once. So, what are you going to do? I filed for divorce and had her served. I needed her to see the seriousness of the situation. My divorce lawyer suggested counseling, so we're going to see one on Wednesday night. That's probably sound advice. Try to find out as much as you can. Maybe you can work it out. Yeah, maybe. I said unenthusiastically. Can I give you some words of wisdom from my own life? He asked. Sure. As you know, I divorced my first wife about 10 years ago. She cheated on me also, but to tell you the truth, it wasn't all her fault. I was so focused on my company that I didn't make time for her. I put her second in my life. Your spouse doesn't want to be second in your life. I learned that a bit too late. She tried to hint to me, and even told me outright that I needed to focus more on our relationship, but I didn't. So, she found the attention she needed from another man. If I had it all to do over again, I would definitely take the time. Even now, if she were to come back to me and ask for a do-over, I would give it my damnedest. That isn't going to happen though. She remarried, and as far as I can tell, he makes her happy. My second wife was a mistake. I kept wanting her to be like my first wife, and she couldn't meet my expectations. So, here I am, pushing 50, going home to an empty house because I keep looking for someone just like my first wife and never find her. I thought about what he said and then said, thanks. Don't give up on your marriage just to turn around and try to find someone just like your wife. He said as he stared off into space. It was the old adage, only with a personal perspective. Would you be better off with her or without her? I didn't want to admit it, but I knew the answer. That night I called JJ. Hey Dad, when you coming home? Were his first words. I don't know, JJ. I'm meeting with your mom tomorrow night. Yeah, she told me that she would be gone for a while and asked me to watch the kids. Of course I said yes. You're a great son, JJ. I love you. I love you too, Dad. Can you put Jeremy and Jennifer on the phone? Sure, let me go get them. When Jeremy came to the phone, he asked, Hey Dad, when are you getting back from your conference? JJ told me that you were at a conference but didn't know for how long. What's a conference, Dad? So, my oldest son was covering for us. He knew we were having problems, but didn't want to upset his siblings. Again, that boy was smart for his age. I'm not sure either, but I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out. I told him. That seemed to appease him. We chatted some more and I told him I loved him. Then his sister had to talk to me. Hey Jennifer, how are you, sweetie? I asked. Oh, I'm fine, she said. Then she started telling me all about her day at school. Oh, the innocence of a little child, oblivious to the troubles around her. It was refreshing. I could have listened to her all night long. Then I heard her mom come into the room and ask her who she was talking to. Daddy, was her response. Okay, but tonight is bath night, so you'll have to tell Daddy bye and come with me. Okay, bye Daddy. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. JJ came back on the phone. Dad, we all miss you. I hope you'll come home soon. Thanks, son. I love and miss all of you too. I'll be back soon, don't worry. I knew, or rather hoped I would be. We just had to figure out a solution to this problem and then set some ground rules. As I hung up, I got a text. It was Bridget. You could have called me. I would have let you talk to them. All I said in return was, okay. Wednesday night, I walked into the counselor's office at about 7:15. It was pleasant looking. I hoped that this meeting would be productive. I had to admit to myself that I really wanted to go back home. I waited in the lobby, having a seat on the love seat. A couple minutes later, Bridget walked in. She smiled at me. I loved that smile. It had always made my day when she did that. She took a seat in the chair. I wasn't sure if she was trying not to make me uncomfortable by not sitting next to me on the love seat, or if she felt the distance between us. A few minutes later, the counselor came out of her office. I'm sure she noted how we had chosen to sit. Her name was Dr. Mary Swift. She was about our age, maybe a little older. She was pleasant. She asked us to take a seat on the couch. We both sat down, about 1.5 feet between us. Kurt, I wanted to be upfront with you and tell you that I have already had a session with Bridget on Monday. She has told me a little bit about the situation. What I'd like to tell you first is that my goal is to save your marriage. What I'd like from you is your willingness to cooperate. I nodded my head. Okay then, what do you want to get out of these sessions? Figuring that Bridget had already put her spin on it, I came right out and said, somewhat hostilely, I would like to know is why my wife of 15 years has been cheating on me with her ex-boyfriend? At this point, I pulled out the picture from the email. Okay, well, I think we can get some answers to that. Is there anything else? Yes, I have a list, but the biggest one is if we stay married. How could I ever trust her again? When I emphasized if I could see Bridget stiffen. I see. Well, we can work on that too. The counselor said, in talking to your wife, I have to say that two things about her personality stand out. The first is being honest. She doesn't lie. That will be very helpful in these sessions, plus it will help you to trust her again. I nodded my head. The second is that promises mean a lot to her. This could also be helpful to reconciliation, but it may also be a stumbling block. I nodded my head again. Bridget, you seemed frustrated that Kurt wouldn't let you explain. Kurt, would you be willing to sit quietly and let her explain? Sure, I said abruptly. Okay, Bridget, go ahead. First, I want to say I love you, Kurt. If you asked yourself that, you would have to answer honestly that you know I do. Next, I want to say that I'm sorry that I hurt you. I was about to interrupt her and ask if she was sorry she did what she did, but the counselor saw me about to speak and said, Kurt, please give her this time. I breathed a heavy sigh and nodded. Bridget continued. Kurt, the man in the picture, as you know, was my high school sweetheart. We were in love. We tried to make a long-distance relationship work during college, but by the end of the first year, we both knew that it wouldn't last. So we broke it off before we went back to college for our sophomore year. I think we were both heartbroken. The doctor cut in and asked, that was close to 20 years ago. What happened to lead us to this point? Bridget continued, Gary couldn't make it to our 15-year high school reunion, but he got a class registry showing my married name. He looked me up on Facebook, and we reconnected. Facebook, I've seen more marriages destroyed because of that accursed website. People can't see the real person, only the persona they want to display, or the memories that people had from their past. The romantic reunions rarely last though, leaving the debris of heartache in their wake. The counselor said, I'm sorry, I don't mean to get up on my soapbox. Please continue, Bridget. Well, 3 years ago the company I work for was planning an expansion into the West. Gary had been unhappy at his previous job, so I told him about the area rep positions that would be opening up. He applied and has been working there ever since. So, he's in Denver and you're here. How did this come about? She said as she pointed to the picture I had pulled out. Bridget's shoulders slumped. Once every quarter, all the area reps have to go to a 3-day meeting at the corporate headquarters in Chicago. That is where we started meeting and reconnecting. The doctor had been watching me as Bridget talked. She noticed my physical response when Bridget said they reconnected.